Austin chapter for September 2020. Welcome. Here's the chapter leadership. You see everything. The new one is Beth is our membership coordinator. If you have any questions for her, she's taken over for Griff, which is great, but she is not taking over what I mentioned earlier, which is Griff's LastCon responsibilities. LastCon is kind of a separate team, but really the same people do a lot of the same stuff, but we do need somebody for assistance there. CPs, if you signed with an email address, that's what I was talking earlier to Josh about. That's why we like people register Eventbrite or Meetup, because we have, hey, you actually registered, and you will see the Zoom links that way. But that also says that you registered, and we can send you CPE information, because we don't record who actually got here. And volunteer opportunities, leadership, speaking opportunities. Sorry, we don't have any leadership opportunities at the moment about activities, but we are looking for things. Amazon Smile, you can do that, and Amazon and OWASP is a 501(c)(3). You can do tax deductible, and a lot of companies actually match that of all things. Membership, have a bunch, 50, 95, 500, lifetime, things like that. Corporates are anywhere starting at 5,000 up to, I don't know, I think they do 100,000 now, and it allows them to do like corporate. I mean, it's a corporate membership for things like regional conferences when those get spun up, or getting placements in some of the OWASP activities. There's a student membership, which Beth can talk about, but right now there's a student membership that's at a discounted rate for, I think, either 15 or 20 or even less per year. Any other questions, please talk to Beth. Hopefully y'all may have heard this via the Austin Google groups. It's a free, open, I have to approve it, but it's an open, anybody can join mailing list to get announcements pretty much about this. That's pretty much the only thing that comes across on that mailing list right now. Slack, we do have 3 Slack channels. There is a OWASP Austin one, which is before the OWASP itself, but there is a OWASP Slack channel itself that you can join, which has a chapter.austin in it. Fairly quiet, but it's decent. The OWASP Austin one, we like it, has a lot more conversation. And there is a LastCon one, which I'm still trying to get the right URL for that one. Obviously, you could have found this on Eventbrite or Meetup, but I think OWASP is trying to push everybody into Meetup using that, so I may start thinking about retiring Eventbrite because they're making too many changes for me that I'm not happy with. Like searching for this was a hard one to find. But there's a lot of things in OWASP chapter that you can join there, and there's a lot of other ones I think we had. I mean, OWASP Foundation is on 198 groups, so you can join, especially with all the virtuals going on right now, you can find all types of things. We have a LinkedIn group, fairly quiet. Used to have some job postings, not really much anymore, pretty much announcements about this. YouTube, we are trying to get into the OWASP Foundation link. We are now going to be a chapter showing up on that, so you'll be able to find OWASP Austin, but we do have a general OWASP Austin channel, I guess, that is all the recent stuff from this year, and then Vimeo is where we used to host it, and that was up to at least archives of August of 2018. I know we have some 2019 stuff in there too, so lots of good stuff you all can find about these presentations. Study group is still ongoing. It is virtual only. I have not been able to attend in quite some time. My Thursdays stink from work. But if you all like to go, you can find a lot more information on the Austin OWASP Slack channel under study group. Matt Pardo was our education coordinator. Please contact him if you need more information. And is anybody on here attending it right now? Yeah. It's usually fairly good. They're doing a lot of, they go through a lot of the red team books, a lot of the like hacker challenges and other things of that nature. It's really kind of fun to do. I would say save date for LastCon, but unfortunately we canceled this year, so it is what it is. But the good thing about having LastCon canceled is we're going to have a chapter meeting next month after all. So we're going to take the speaker that was, unfortunately, a miscommunication happened a few months ago, so she'll be able to do it next month, and it's great. And chapter events, we usually only have the happy hour, but it's unfortunately canceled due to just still the restrictions on bars and other things like that, and I need to reach out to Brass Tap and validate what we could do with them if they're still available. Heck, you know, too many things are closing down here in Austin. Hopefully not Brass Tap, though. Local events, there's a whole host of different events you can find. I point everybody to the austinissa.org calendar. It used to be fairly good. It's still not too bad. It's kind of gotten a little lighter, but they have things like AHA on it, ISSA, ISA squared, ACP, and also don't forget there are some kind of local conferences that are all virtual right now. Actually, I'm not sure if B-Sides is virtual, but I think it is. B-Sides Austin is, but Houston SecCon, not com. Oops. But they're doing an air-gapped edition only on October 23rd, so check those out. support your regional events. Anybody want to say anything about either job opportunities or job looking or anything of that nature? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
I'm looking.
Okay. What type of stuff you looking for there?
Looking for an information security architect position.
So if anybody has anything along those lines, reach out to Sylvan Tran.
Thanks, everybody.
Right,
yep, just like the Learning Center.
And there's lots of stuff. There's some stuff out there, but yeah, feel free to use LinkedIn and other things of that nature to find from the OWASP area. Speaking opportunities, while we do have somebody for next month, we won't be meeting for November or December because, well, it's Thanksgiving week and then Christmas week, so it's kind of hard to meet there anyways, even though virtual is easier. But if you have things you saw, if y'all were here a few minutes ago, you saw Kate Brew jump on. She's our speaker coordinator, and she takes all that information. I believe hers is kate.brew@owasp.org if you want to talk to her. There, that was my quickest presentation. But now we have Sam Danna, who'll be talking about why you should be, why you should be recruiting military folks for your
why
teams.
We need military veterans
Thank you.
on your cybersecurity team.
I usually put the title on here, and for some reason, I skipped it. But
no worries.
Good. Sam is here, and I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can pass the baton to him.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle.
Test this out. I should have done this earlier. I'll make you host.
I think I can. Oh no, you disabled it.
Well, yeah. Let's see. Yep, I'm just gonna make you the host.
Excellent. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
No. Not yet.
There we go. Had to click the share button, right? Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I had visioned giving this presentation at NI in our usual spot, but as we went through the announcements, clearly times have changed. So this will have to suffice for now. But I am missing those amazing cookies and food, though, and I know I'm not alone there. So, anyways, my name is Sam Danna, and I'm on the security team at Solis Security. We're an Austin-based MSSP, and we perform a wide range of services for our clients. So. Real quick, let's talk about the annoying, obnoxious picture here that some of you probably recognized in the background. This is from the DDoS attack that occurred back in June or July, and it made major headline news. And it's my favorite pew pew map of 2020, but this showed up in a lot of different corners of the internet. And I think I saw it first on the anonymous Twitter, but I included it here for a couple of reasons. First, obviously, it attempts to oversimplify a more complicated issue, such as cyber warfare and the challenges we face in our digital world and securing that infrastructure. But also, it's just I just wanted some colorful graphics to illustrate a digital world war. So that's the reason for that. So let's talk for a second about the bulk of our discussion. So I don't think I'll use up the whole hour, and really that's kind of by design. So I know there are many brilliant leaders in InfoSec in the audience, and what I hope is that we can have more of an open panel discussion for the last few minutes if time allows. So that way we can let the leaders in the room share maybe what's worked best and what hasn't as far as military recruitment, hiring, and really building great teams and organizations. So curiosity is what brought us all here, and I'm here to learn as well. So I hope we can have some dialogue while we're all together. Additionally, as we head into October, we're still in quarantine. We're still getting bombarded about all the issues dividing us, and there are really few other topics I'd rather engage on now than building teams. So I know we have a lot of really amazing technical talks here at OWASP. There was a really great talk last month about mixed nets, and this is kind of I guess something a little bit different. It's not as technical, but I think it's still an important issue. So just really want to highlight that in the end, building teams and building our organizations is really the only thing that we can control, and it's really important, I know, in our organization and install this. So I'm bringing this up though also to highlight kind of the urgency in developing cohesive units of people within cybersecurity. So You know, I really believe this starts with bringing the right people into the organization, such as military veterans, but it also is fostering a culture that, you know, promotes camaraderie, action, trust, and measurable outcomes. So, you know, that's what this is all about, albeit from my own experiences in the military and in information security. And just as one disclaimer, if you will, before we begin, none of my ideas here are original thought. There's many others. I work with many people that are trying to promote veteran hiring initiatives in cybersecurity as well as other fields. So, you know, it's an agenda we're pushing forward to try and get people that are adding security members or, you know, whatever the industry is, to look not just at the you know, technical aptitude of a person, but of, you know, more of the soft skills. I want to start with a quote before we get into the, you know, the meat of the presentation that I think describes really well the mindset as well as the dichotomy that many veterans face when they enter the workforce. Humans don't mind hardships. In fact, they thrive on it. What they mind is not feeling necessary. Modern society has perfected the art of making people not feel necessary. It's time for that to end. This is from Sebastian Junger's book Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging, and it's a really amazing book. It's a quick read. He was the documentary filmmaker that made the documentary Restrepo, which is about a remote outpost in the Korengal Valley in Afghanistan. And he has some really good, keen insights into military culture and about, you know, kind of the human condition, if you will, and about how you know, people look for comfort in numbers and really for support within their tribe. So, but I'm also bringing this into the presentation to just kind of highlight one other thing, and that's in cyber. I don't think that we necessarily all are afflicted by this, because at least, you know, how I see things is cyber really does matter. So here's just some bullet points about kind of the flow of the presentation. So I want to be really clear here. This is not intended to be a pep talk for, you know, former service members. And it's certainly not a plug that you should only hire military. There are tons of well-qualified non-veterans out there. My intentions are to have a real discussion about the shortage of talent for cybersecurity positions, assessing talent and the components and pillars of an effective team, and how veterans can be attractive candidates. And I believe my audience mainly is information security leaders and hiring managers that are that have set out to build out teams. So I'm of course speaking to veterans, but it's not about, you know, telling them how great they are, or you know, trying to get them to you know, drop everything and start a career in cyber. It's about illustrating the soft skills that someone acquires in service and how those can have real tangible benefits in rewarding and critical industries such as security and technology. Then I'm going to give my way too oversimplified 3 key ingredients that I think are essential in building an effective security team. And these stem really from my lessons in the military, both in garrison and on deployment to Afghanistan as an infantryman, and mastering physical security principles. And then lastly, I'm going to give my take on important skills that veterans have mastered that I think can bring a lot to any security organization. All right, a moment of pain though, real quick. So that's a lot, and building teams is no easy feat, but in comparison, I can tell you that this hurts a lot more than building out your org. So architecting a team is no joke. It's a serious endeavor, but anyone that's served a day in the Airborne knows that this is a lot more painful. And you know, I can just look at this picture and feel my hips and back hurt again. So I don't miss those days at all. All right, why cyber? Or better yet, who are these folks? Well, this is Jeff and this is Tina. And if you've spent any time in the service the last 5 to 10 years, you know them really well. But I'll get back to them in a second. So first, just a little bit more about me. I started this journey in information security not that long ago, and I almost feel like it found me really. The Army was I really began to learn and understand how to manage diverse teams, and where I started to understand how complex any security initiative can be. But only after the military service did I decide to really go in on building a career in InfoSec and try and bring some of those lessons with me. And luckily today, it's much easier to transition from the military due to training provided by the DoD and private companies. there are some really amazing veteran hiring initiatives out there right now. And I really believe that coupled with like a clear objective on behalf of the veteran, a path forward, and real opportunities presented by the cyber community, that a lot of other veterans will find their way to cyber as well. For me, the real reason though why I wanted to pivot into this world of cybersecurity is because I just wanted to continue to be a part of the fight. When I enlisted, I thought if I signed up for the infantry and made it to some elite unit, excuse me, that I'd be able to make a difference in the world for my country. And the reality is that the fight it's here now in information security, and that's why all of us service members know Jeff and Tina so well. They play a crucial role and arguably the most effective cyber awareness training in the history of the world. So I hope you can sense my sarcasm there. But why do they even exist though? And that's because, you know, as I just said, the fight's happening now, and wars really are no longer being fought storming beaches and jumping into a foreign country. It's digital and has real world repercussions. And if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't probably know Jeff and Tina so well, and I wouldn't have had to take the DoD cyber awareness training every 6 months. And I wouldn't have the question as to why I did that as an infantryman, but the sailor in the Navy never learned how to shoot. It's just, you know, kind of the new domains of warfare, if you will. But amongst many other things, it also has to do with the fact that, you know, we're not fighting wars in a traditional sense. It's more important that our service members understand cyber risks than are proficient in shooting the M4 carbine rifle. You're much more likely to be subject to someone's malicious intent when browsing on a military computer than you know, having to discharge your firearm. I mean, we all, most of us work in security, and we all understand the inherent risks. And our adversaries, and of course us, the U.S., are more interested in disrupting a state's ability to advance technologically than attacking critical infrastructure. Creating obvious physical destruction is bad news. So, you know, I know I was a former foreign policy major. I'm not saying that, you know, we have to ignore, you know, the traditional spheres of warfare. You know, we were almost at the peak of, you know, conflict back in January when we whacked Soleimani, the Iranian general, but that conventional warfare isn't even in the government's top 3 anymore. So I don't think we should feel obliged to say that, you know, that's at the center of our focus right now. But, you know, the main point here is that, you know, I wanted to be part of this fight, and many other veterans want to as well. And the fight is in cyber. So as a result of that, I think we should be building excellent teams in cybersecurity. All right. I want to talk real quick about the paradox or the problem that all of us hear about, the estimated 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity by 2021 next year. We hear about new job postings every monthly meeting. We heard about one today. There's definitely no shortages of positions that are out there, but what kinds of positions are these? Are they entry level? I don't think it really matters for the point of this discussion. The problem is the disconnect between, you know, companies and veterans that want to get in. Companies need someone to perform the first day on the job and to have a technical baseline, of course, but companies can also be really bad at hiring because they miss talent simply because they're looking for some audacious qualification that is considered, quote, the standard. And, you know, because of this, great talent seeking entry into cyber is often overlooked. It would be really unfair for me not to address the other side of the issue, though, too. Veterans are terrible at marketing themselves. Our resumes, when we get out of the military, are horrible. And it's always the same bullet points. It's always something like this: managed disciplinary actions of the team and cut an incident by X%, or was attentive to detail in administering inspections, etc. I mean, how does that translate to anything? And you know, for that reason, it's really no mystery that a lot of military talent goes unnoticed. The latter issue I'm trying to personally, you know, work through volunteering with an organization that works with active duty soldiers that are about to separate. We help polish their resumes, craft their elevator speeches, grow networks, and get them in front of tech companies here in Austin. And I'm bringing this up not necessarily to highlight like a volunteer experience, but to showcase that there are organizations dedicated to the other side of the issue as well. But also something else that was super interesting that I noticed this fall in working with this company. So or this nonprofit. So out of 14 veterans in the cohort, can anyone guess in their minds how many want to land in InfoSec? 9. So 9 out of 14 from this nonprofit that helps veterans transition, 9 of them want to get into cybersecurity. And this is a nonprofit that's catering to organization or catering to soldiers that aren't looking to get just into cyber. They're looking to get into any industry. And I think that's a staggering percentage of the cohort that wants to get into security. And these are soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, coasties from all different units and military occupational specialties. And I really believe that many of the individuals that I get a chance to work with would be an asset to any organization. But they're getting rejected because someone is so hung up on qualification X or Y. And I've seen it before on Glassdoor, an entry-level security analyst position, 3 to 5 years, or how about a CISSP? So this isn't the case all the time, obviously. We're getting better, but it's not uncommon to see these sort of things. The other picture, I get it. It's not an entry-level InfoSec position that a veteran would apply for, but it highlights the same issues that we're discussing in tech and security. And I thought this was so perfect, I couldn't leave it out. So, once again, these hiring practices can turn away would-be assets before they even get to demonstrate how to think and operate. And these technical prerequisites aren't asking for any sort of specific technical skill set. Many are not even remotely concerned with the dynamic thinking that's involved in security. And I would argue that's an essential part of any security position. So where exactly do veterans fit into all this? Well, as I mentioned, many organizations need someone who can be effective day one, but how do we measure day one effectiveness? Is it purely technical? I mean, we can teach technology, right? Especially to those that are hungry to learn and might already have some basic skills, but I'd argue that the only way that I got my start in InfoSec was that luckily I had a mentor that sought people to bring the right people into InfoSec based on the right attitude and right mindset. So if measuring day one effectiveness has nothing to do with performing something technical, maybe it looks something like having someone look at internal training initiatives, take a look at team dynamics, uncover workflow bottlenecks, or whatever the problem is. But I think we really can effectively, throw away some of the traditional hiring practices, which unfortunately seem really centered and focused on disqualifying people and gatekeeping. Now, I understand there's a reason for, some technical prerequisites and whatnot, but I'm mainly trying to get the point across that a lot of these, veterans that are trying to get into cyber are having the door shut in their face because, they're not meeting this specific thing in the job requirement, and they're not getting a chance to showcase all of the other intangibles they can bring. This is also another reason for the imposter syndrome, right, in tech that we hear about. Many experience it before they're even getting their application sent out. And it's not just veterans either. It's minorities, it's other underrepresented groups in InfoSec and tech. But I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. So I really do believe that this gap can and must be bridged, though, in our industry. We definitely need the motivation. We need the drive. We need the devotion that many of our veterans and service members embody. And this transition back to the workforce is daunting, and quite honestly, it's overwhelming. Many are looking for a purpose to continue to remain relevant and in the fight, and that's why all of us served. To protect our nation, promote values, principles, that this nation was founded on. And it's more about finding those individuals with the hunger and passion to have meaning in his or her work. And it's about tipping the scale in the battle and security. And that's really the whole reason for that, the loud title, the digital world war. Our industry is so unique. We go to work every day and we're defending and fighting off real attacks with real implications. There's no bullets or bombs, but there's also no boundaries. There's certainly no rules. And, even if you're a red teamer, then, you're promoting good security practices by, trying to emulate an adversary. So I just think as a starting guide, to continue to bring on good people to the org and the team, looking at it through that lens, but also trying to reverse engineer your best security people And also knowing what make up your worst security people is an important way to begin narrowing that search. Talent acquisition. I love this word. We're really great at creating new buzzwords for the times. Recruiting was fine for me, but this term is more common these days, so I'll roll with it. But I just want to touch on a few topics here real quickly. So, just to clarify here that we're really talking about a focus gap, who we're not focusing on bringing into cybersecurity. So they say a technical gap is between two people is actually a focus gap. And it's kind of the same thing here. We're just, not really taking the initiative to get the right people in the room all the time. And if you've ever done any recruiting, you understand that once you get the right people in the room, it's important to understand what you're looking for and asking the right questions. So I don't think we should just be asking, what their skills are or what their weaknesses are to give, an example of what they would hypothetically do. I think we need to ask to see. We need to be having a conversation around real and relevant problems, and by engaging at that level, we might be able to begin to engage with the right candidates. So let me slow down for 1 second and I'll emphasize that I'm not advocating throwing away the whole hiring process. I'm just essentially trying to highlight that altering our filtering mechanisms, I think, can pay real dividends. So, filtering based on qualities of our best security people, and also based on those that you don't want on your team, and using that list to measure up candidates and see how they solve real world problems. So, cyber is a real world problem. They're not things that are happening in a far off land. I mean, they're happening to our products, to our organizations, the enterprises that we protect. So that's how we should be assessing candidates in the interview. Getting into practical thinking questions and real insights how to one thinks. And lastly, this whole concept, I've heard this a lot in recruiting jargon, and it's a concept of open source hiring. So, once again, to obviously highlight that we're talking about veteran hiring initiatives, but it's also about bringing in other groups of people in security field and embracing this concept of open source hiring. Just a term to describe how you might look for candidates that maybe don't fit a traditional mold or come from, a generic search for a person with credential X from this school. It's about kind of opening the doors to a wider audience of applicants to kind of see, where you can bring in different people that think differently. All right, well, let's try agree for 1 second on what an effective team is. Who's on an effective team? Is it her? Is it him? No, it's none of those cool cats and kittens. They would definitely not last a single day on an effective team like we're talking about. But in all seriousness, no, there is no one person, that's an embodiment of who's on an effective team. We've talked about hiring shortages, lack of real entry-level positions, and where some of the nuanced issues might lie. So, we need to open it up to a broader audience. So the first kind of characteristic of an effective team within security is one that's humble. So when I bring up humility in security, I also have to bring up this notion of elitism that unfortunately plagues our field. Humility is key. Everyone started out small, much like how every service member and veteran once was a civilian, with none of the experience that they can bring now to your team. This mentality that you have to prove yourself by some arbitrary technical standard to get into InfoSec it's not a good trend. And I really think by embracing humility, we can see ourselves in a more modest way. This embracement, though, of humility is not only going to yield, like I said, just a little more agility, but it really fosters service, and I think that can help ensure that other rules are followed as a result. Secondly, when you bring in new people to the team, it should be taken really seriously. So almost like a selection, because whether you like it or not, the team chemistry and dynamics is going to change, even if it's just slightly so. When teams train and are held accountable in their responsibilities and ambition, it instills, that sense of ownership in that individual. So at our organization in particular, we're bringing in new people all the time, and we develop them. And much like drafting a pitcher and bringing him or her up through the minors. So our CISA's branded it the farm team concept, and I think it's a really good analogy to the way you can foster kind of development within the team, and also it breeds that sense of loyalty and team success, since everyone has that vested interest. Real quick though, I want to talk about the imposter syndrome once again. So I definitely experienced it in the field. I think most initially do in tech, and when you join the military, you definitely do, because you start out in indoctrination where every aspect of military life is foreign, and everyone's screaming at you and trying to get you to mess up, and you don't know anything, so you have to constantly look at your leaders and peers in order to gain any sort of fundamental understanding of anything. And even when you get to your unit, you're still being tested against standards and experience of, could be field grade officers or general officers, definitely your senior enlisted guys. But through this concept of training together, that's where we really begin to knock down walls and allow camaraderie to flood in. So I want to stress that this training together, though, it's a top-down initiative. I get it that there's executives and higher level managers that have tons of obligations, but everyone should be getting some trigger time. Anyone that's served in combat arms has probably had to do a live fire exercise, which is essentially a maneuver range. And it's mainly for squad and team size elements, but there's also, company live fire exercises where you got the company first sergeant, who's the highest ranking enlisted man, and you have the commander, who's the highest ranking officer. And they lace up and hit the range with everyone else. And by far, these are the best training days in the military. When you get to see your old first sergeant, throwing some rounds down range or whatever, and the CO as well, it's a good day. And for subordinates, seeing that leader get some trigger time and dirty their hands a little bit is the ultimate way to build credibility. So that's a really important aspect of an effective team. Everyone's heard about measuring change. So, leveraging quantifiable outcomes. We have good metrics around where we're headed. This includes all the normal metrics that I'm sure everyone gets bombarded with in their meetings. But what I'm referring to here is also measuring changes and trajectories of your team to include, individual development, individual team development, and those stagnate rather quickly without measuring progress and regress. And it can't always be positive self-talk. So many times we start out down road heading for some end states, and then years or months, whatever the time frame is, we realize that we didn't get there, and it's because we started down a different road halfway through without even noticing it, and as a result we got nowhere. So at Solis, we call this continuous improvement, and we utilize the Japanese word kaizen. So we're doing our best to kind of internalize this as well. And then lastly, the reason why so many of you are sought after in whatever your respective fields are is that you're probably gainfully employed, but it's your technical acumen. So we can never afford to let our technical skills go by the wayside. So creating that culture with training, but also that promotes certain exploration and refinement of skills, and pushing people to those limits, creating that friction, that's needed to sharpen the sword. All right, so here are my, as promised, oversimplified, 3 key ingredients for building teams. So, I really like the concept of joining a group where the desired behavior is normal, but I'm also someone that's an advocate of creating one if you can't necessarily find one. So, we're all leaders in our own respective way. But we need to focus on aspects of team. We need to talk about camaraderie, extreme ownership, and adaptation. And this is even more critical for growing organizations, or those starting out that may be poised to experience a large amount of growth. We have to plant the seed today, and it has to be, we should strive to do it right the first time. So, but the first sort of key concept here is a bias towards action. Prioritizing action isn't about just being reckless for the sake of acting out. It's essentially encouraging failure through the upward spiral. And what exactly do I mean by that? So, okay, the lessons of failure and, coupling those with sound examination, they obviously lead to a positive trajectory. So, in the military, we called this the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. And this was a concept developed by U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd. This approach kind of highlights the human agility that we've talked about a little bit. So, actually right now, if you Google OODA loop and read the last sentence in the first paragraph, it states that there's special applicability to cybersecurity and cyber warfare with the OODA loop. Not my edits, but the important thing to note here is that there's a lot of overlap between military operations, security operations. So the last thing I'll say about the OODA loop is that it never stops. It's a giant cycle composed of infinite loops and microcycles, and then once you act, the whole thing starts all over again. Next is resiliency. So without this fundamental pillar, the whole thing breaks down. So what happens when you get to act? You observe, and you can't orient yourself to start to make a decision or act again. If you can't move or steer yourself, then you're essentially just stuck at go. So resilient staff understand that it's not the first mistake that ruins you; it's the spiral. And understanding this key principle is paramount, and especially since in security we're constantly learning through failure. So there's no perfect in security. It's failing forward fast, but it's also making sure that mistakes aren't regularly occurring. And through this build self-confidence and respect in the team and in the project as a whole. So another way that we can build resiliency is to cut off traditional support networks, and kind of let somebody take the reign and take the lead. And in the military, we had this concept called bluff, the bottom line up front. So you got a subordinate, and maybe they want to showcase what they've learned or taking on some sort of initiative. You give your recommendations and conclusions first, and rather than at the end, and you kind of step back and watch what they do. And as a result, you can really spectacularly watch someone's resiliency develop. So, lastly, trust. So, we have to have trust, and it's more than just telling the truth. And really, the other reasons here is, how do I expect anyone or a client or a stakeholder to trust me if it's not one of our key pillars on the team? It doesn't mean you need to be a jerk in telling the truth. It's just being straightforward and being blunt. But also you'll find that implementing that sort of communication style and foundational aspect of the team, it really allows everything else to fall in place. So trust is about communication, but with tact, and it's a way of life in the military. I should be able to turn to my team as a leader and ask simple questions without people's emotions and egos firing off. Those sorts of things still happen, obviously, but they're not characteristic of that effective team that we're talking about. Security is just as complicated and messy of an endeavor, and I need to be able to hit the pause button as a leader and ask what the hell is going on, and challenge anyone to step up. And you could call this a tactical pause, but building this trust is a dividend. So and when I say dividend, I mean, what happens when the worst occurs? The data breach. Does the blame game start immediately? This is the other worst part of our industry. How many times do we see that there's a data breach, and then in the news there's the finger pointing that starts? There's so many that are quick to try and publicly humiliate a security team or CISO after an incident. Trust is about communication regularly, as well as telling and being told that we're not doing great or we are. We don't want the first time to establish good communication protocols be after a failure. That erodes trust. So these are my top three. There are obviously many more ingredients that would go into creating a high functioning team, but these are, in my opinion, the top three things. All right, that was a lot. So other than turning the interview process on its head and knowing what day one effectiveness looks like, I'm advocating obviously for us to search more outside our traditional search parameters, and to take what we've learned and try and find the right people. So the whole purpose of this is focusing on veterans. And I've said it again, I'll say it another time. It's not just veterans that I think we need to focus more on. veterans are my people, if you will, and I'm working hard to try and make sure that there are opportunities there. And I've also noticed that there's a lot of overlap between the two jobs. So military veterans are not all the same. They have different experiences, styles, and personalities. But at the end of the day, in the military, the mission doesn't change, and it's one team and one fight. And I believe that mission critical security takes the same creativity, precision, and discipline as mission critical military operations. And that's why we really need more veterans in the field of cybersecurity. So aside from the grit, work ethic, military veteran can bring to your team a lot of other areas of expertise that I think can add a tremendous amount of value to a security team. The first thing that I wanted to highlight is knowing your adversary. So knowing your adversary or enemy, it's the same as a professional sports team that takes the field without scouting its opponent, or a general launching a military exercise without studying the capabilities of the opposing forces. And in business, it's the fact that no sensible leader would ever enter a market without identifying major competitor strengths and weaknesses. But every day in cybersecurity, professionals go to work and they don't really understand the accurate picture of their adversaries. And in information security, if we don't understand the motivations and intentions, as well as the competencies of the adversaries, then we can't really hope to be effective in mitigating risk for the enterprise or product. It makes it damn near impossible to focus on the right defenses. So it's really a developed mindset, though, and it's a daily approach to craft, and it involves working with a sense of urgency, because you're keenly aware of what the adversary is capable of. So knowing your adversary, though, isn't always just about another group or person or threat actor. It's also knowing how failure works. So and that means in any given situation, and trying to seek to eliminate that. Failure is our biggest adversary, I would argue, and we have to understand it. It's necessary, but it can hinder success if not corrected quickly. It's definitely the best learning tool, but once again, it's a spiral that if we don't control, that leads to our demise. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a murder board before, but in the Army, we used it almost weekly before training. And it's really a tool that we use to try and get to know our enemy, and it involves all of the programmers and developers' beloved whiteboard, a marker, and your team to strategically map out all the ways in which an initiative can fail and what that means at each level. And that's kind of the second part of this, is having that real, honest discussion and trust with the team to root out all those choke points. So we have to know what we're up against in order to be effective. And the murder board can actually help relieve that anxiety. So it adds clarity, action, and takes a lot of the guesswork out of things. So it might look similar to a well thought out incident response or business continuity plan. So the bottom line here, though, is veterans, they know their adversary. Diversity. We come from a lot of different professional and personal backgrounds in cybersecurity, whether it's your background as a developer, network engineer, or you're from a completely different field. Everyone offers something different. In the military, you have no choice in who you're forced to work with, and you have to find strength in it. And I would argue, honestly, that there are few organizations as diverse as the U.S. military. In my first platoon, our platoon leader was a West Point grad. The weapons squad leader was a former outfielder in the minors. One of my team leads was a poor guy from Brooklyn that lived on the street for a year. One of my grenadiers was he had 3 degrees from Arizona State University. One of them was in computer science and AI. And then one of my riflemen was a guy from Ukraine who just always wanted to live in the U.S. So, there's nothing spectacular there, but it kind of highlights, it's a small microcosm, and highlights the diversity that you experience day in and day out in the military. Were there tense moments on that team? Absolutely. And did some people have to swallow their pride and shift styles? Yeah, definitely. But when we're building teams, we need to look at bringing in people that have worked in diverse settings. If we continue to bring in the same experiences with each new hire and the same ways of thinking, then we can never really expect that innovation to take place. So We need differing opinions. We need viewpoints, and it's really non-negotiable. So veterans thrive in diverse and working places. All right, accountability. So, clearly reliable for our conduct at all times, as well as our team, equipment, assets. And this is as professionals on and off the clock. It's during times after duty when you think no one's watching, or you take your suit and tie off, you go home, you go out to dinner with the family. There's always eyes on all of us, but it doesn't matter what you think is taking place. You're still representing your organization or your unit. So, but I'm bringing this into the conversation to focus more on another aspect of accountability that I'd like to take a step further, and that's asset device accountability, which in my opinion, it remains one of the most frustrating parts of our field in cybersecurity, knowing your unauthorized and unauthorized devices and software. So, yep, the top two things on the SANS Critical 20: asset inventory. And as a defender, this is a must at the front of your mind at all times. So, in the military, there's a list of questions that you get when you go overseas, to translate, but there's also a list of questions that kind of just help a soldier or Marine or whomever rethink the situations here. So, am I protecting all my gaps? What can I shore up today? Does anything need extra care? And if I'm not paying attention, how would I ever expect to get that sort of information? So, bringing those sort of habits into the organization at that individual level, and folks that have internalized those lessons, creating baselines and being accountable for critical personnel, equipment, and systems is I think another fundamental thing that we would all like our new hire to take seriously. So, as an example too, in the military, I remember one time we went to the dining facility, and I think it was team lead, he wanted to borrow some silverware. It was like a knife, and they made him sign it out on the sign out form. So that just goes to show you the level of accountability you need for all of your equipment at all times in the military. You got to sign out literally everything and document everything. So veterans working in positions requiring good asset inventory and accountability are in my opinion a match made in heaven. All right, an unrivaled sense of patience. So I apologize for the Trump meme, but there was a pretty popular GIF that went around my military unit, and it was him in front of the podium saying, millions and billions, as he always does, and we all captioned it to make poke fun at some aspect of military life. So I just wanted to throw it in here, but building out a robust security operation. Whether it's just a small team, a whole org, or you're looking at more specific projects such as a SOC playbook, a hot threat dashboard, or trust with your clients, they all require a lot of patience and persistence. So, we all want the easy button. I'm guilty of it. How could I not be? Living in this world today with these luxuries, I have to check myself and understand that I can't have these expectations with everything, especially when I put my security hat on. Good security is tough work, and solutions aren't always obvious, and we have to bang our heads against the wall sometimes to find the right answer. So, rooting out a good temperament and patience, playing the long game, allowing for longevity and endurance. It allows us to be more effective in the long run too. It prevents burnout. In the military, getting anything done requires a stoics level of patience. I talked about having to sign out silverware from the dining facility, but if you don't have a rank, it goes even a step further. So trying to get a promotion, a spot for a school you want to attend, attaining any real progress takes so much time. And, even when you try to do nothing in the military, I feel like it takes an extraordinary amount of patience. So we all know what hurry up and wait means. That's kind of just the daily routine of being active duty. So I'm really happy those days are over, obviously, but I see the value in what that teaches us all as we come over to the civilian side. So Veterans are patient, and I believe they understand the long game and have the endurance. All right, lastly is confidence under pressure. So in security, there's alarms going off constantly, much in the same way that bullets fly, simulation grenades explodes, a time-sensitive project needs completed, or some sort of critical event needs a response. Thinking clearly, remaining confident are the only ways where we can act rationally and according to the situation. And security requires this at all levels because we're all stakeholders to some degree. We all have unique responsibilities. And this is really where our bias towards action shines and where we operate with trust, going back to those three key things. So the tactical pause, this confidence aids communication. So as a leader, I want to be able to turn to my guys at any point in time and, the bells and whistles are going off and say, what are you going to do about it? Is the legal team involved? What other things do I need to know to help guide you? But what are you going to do about it? That's what it boils down to. So the gravity of the situation within our field of work, it has to be internalized. There's a lot of people with vested interest when a security incident happens, and having the right folks be able to internalize the gravity is paramount. So veterans are definitely confident under pressure. All right. Once again, I know that was a lot, but I want to circle back now and kind of summarize and talk a little bit about everything we hit on. So, in cyber, we understand and try to establish our baselines. We want to know where to improve as an organization. It's difficult to know where your gaps are, but we do know what compliance frameworks we're headed towards and what we want to meet generally and how we want to get there if it's a large, security initiative. But it seems like having a roadmap around bringing the right people on can sometimes fall by the wayside. It's something that I think we need to take as seriously as any other initiative. If you're not in the position to hire or you can't get good talent soon, then you're not out of luck either. I mean, everything we talked about, we can have by way of nurturing good habits organizationally. So your current habits are designed to deliver your current results, and a team with the right habits can save everyone a lot of time and even money. People that enlist, not all of them surely have the right habits, but they're formed and they're centered around the basics. So we can look to create a similar culture within our orgs if we're not able to actively engage with new recruits, if you will. So but to summarize, I think that the characteristics that make up your most effective and ineffective people should be understood. Asking to see in the interview, kind of turning that whole process on its head, and looking for the answers or to be showed the mindset and solving a real world and relevant problem are super important. Beginning your search and knowing with what day one expectations look like. So maybe it's non-negotiable and you need someone to be extremely technical on the first day. That's great. You're ahead of the curve, but for some organizations, it's about meeting some sort of growth pattern and just getting the right people on the bus. So lastly, just want to talk about if you've made a decision and you're adding someone with the right stuff, you've already done all of this stuff, then great. The refinement doesn't stop though. You have to repeat and continue to repeat and refine the processes. Just some closing thoughts. So for some, maybe it's still not clear why I'm so passionate about getting more military into cybersecurity. In addition to everything that we just covered, I think that veterans can help build strong and effective teams, and I really want to stress how much they do care about the future and security of this country, of our businesses, those of our allies, and of our people. It's understood now, even by the general public, that cyber is arguably the most important domain of warfare. It's not just the buildup of an arsenal or some ambiguous threat in a far-off land. It happens regularly, and most of you were probably paying attention this weekend. Just over, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, the potentially largest ransomware attack in U.S. history occurred on a major hospital system. There's no WMDs or insurgents. it's not some far off land where you got to sell the American public on, some sort of, invasion. But the bullets are being fired and the bombs are being detonated, and maybe you won't die if you get hit with a malicious packet, but your life and those around you can be really altered if you're on the wrong side of it. So, I spoke earlier about the organization that I'm involved with to help service members transition. And other than the good fit and obvious financial incentives of building, a career in cyber, veterans tell me all the time that have already made the transition into this field that they feel they're making a real difference. And, a couple of my other counterparts that, I served in my unit with that didn't make the transition into cyber, had really good insights. One of them said to me the other day, it's hard to get excited about meaningless sales quotas and widgets. And I feel like your job in cyber is different. So, for me, it's not hard to get excited about being involved in something relevant and important. And, I just hope that we can continue to augment our teams and continue to bring in the right people into this industry, because I think a lot of our future depends on it. All right, so if we still have enough time, Kyle, I'm not sure if we're over the mark. I guess we have about 5 more minutes, but I wanted to open it up to the floor to some of the information security leaders in the audience, or anyone really that just wants to take a stab at one of these questions. So it doesn't have to be all of them. Maybe we just hit on 1 or 2 of them, but I don't know, Kyle, if we have enough time, maybe we can talk about that.
I mean, no big deal. And then, of course, people can always stay around if they want to later. Anybody have anything particular about his presentation? Like Josh?
Hey, so thanks for the presentation, really good. When I ran the security team at NI, I actually brought on, as an intern, somebody who was former military, and overall a very positive experience. I guess what I have is more of a statement than a question. One of the things that I've always hired for, above anything else really, is passion. I'm not looking for somebody who knows how to do the thing, because the thing is constantly changing. In our environment, what we do is changing based on what the adversary is doing. And so I think you're right. The ability to evolve and adapt to those situations is critically important. That said, the passion piece involves activity outside of the workplace. And so, I guess maybe the question piece of this for you is, what do you see these people doing that demonstrates that passion for cybersecurity? Not just the desire to be hired, but the desire to learn outside of just me paying them money for OJT.
Yeah, those are really good points, and thanks for that, Josh. I think that we talk a lot about having side projects, right, and technical stuff, but I think following current events is super important. Not only to look and see kind of what the trends are and where the direction of cyber is heading, but and finding those people and kind of understanding what their interests are as it relates to maybe the geopolitical sphere. For me, when I talk to people about cyber, is really important. We talk a lot about being able to teach tech and that sort of thing when someone lands a position per se, but those sorts of passions and those sorts of outside interests, you can't teach anybody. So if somebody is already showing a lot of interest in trying to keep up with the times and trying to understand more of the nuanced topics about cyber, for me, that's a really good indication that individual might be successful in whatever position they're finding themselves in.
As a hiring manager, I'd add into that. I'm looking for people who are actively attending groups like this, whether it's OWASP or AHA, or just finding a way to network, get around people who have common interests and are pushing themselves to learn. And it may be attending school at some level, it may be chasing a certification, it may be doing hack the box challenges, staying up on current events, but I want to know what they're reading, what they're doing to stay current, and what activities really drive them and make them want to be in this business rather than being here because they think there's a dollar to be had.
Any other or about topics, or so we can just say thank you.
I'm sorry, you cut out there, Kyle.
I got about a minute. Experience. Anybody have any wrap this up? Can y'all hear me?
Can right now, but your mic is cutting out. I'll step in for Kyle since we're having issues hearing him. But I think what he's saying is, does anybody else have anything else to add to the conversation before we wrap? All right. Thank you all for attending the September OWASP Austin meeting. As Kyle mentioned, we'll have a meeting in October, and then we go dormant for November, December, and then in January we should have the crypto party. So thank you all for attending. Have a good one.